Welcome back to Patman Garage. We're going to take a quick peek at this 2014 F150. Everybody says the tulip valves are 11 to 13, and this is a 2014. I still have not found the production date on this particular engine, but we'll take a look at what I'm seeing so far. Now, the customer had mentioned that they had a compression test done. So our misfire is on number 7. The cylinder has had a compression test on it, and he was told that it had 60 psi of compression on that cylinder. So we'll start there and we'll do a cylinder leak down test and see where the air is going, and we'll get to that cylinder and we'll pull off some of the airbox stuff so we can get to the harmonic balancer. Alright, so we're going to get started on this truck, which means we need to get access to the spark plug. So we need to remove our coil, and as you can see, somebody has not been watching my video with my tips on how to not break these clips. So this clip is already broken on number 7, which honestly is not that surprising given we've had a couple different people in this truck already. So we'll pop this coil off and take a look at it, and like I said, we'll pull our plug and do our cylinder leak down. Alright, so we got the cylinder plug removed, and we installed a compression tester. So we'll take a look at what our actual compression is on this cylinder. Hopefully I can position that where we can all see it. Yeah, cylinder's definitely hurt. So we maxed out at about 70 on the after we did the we count 3 pulses, so it was about 70 I think on the third. So not great, but we'll figure out where this air is going. Alright, so I have my 18mm breaker bar or ratchet on my crank, and I've been rotating it until I saw just the slightest little puff on the compression gauge, so I know I'm on compression cylinder or compression cycle now. Or compression stroke, I guess I should say. So we'll pull the tester back out. We'll stick an extension down in there, and we'll bring it up until we're at the top. And that way we know we have minimal cylinder volume, and then we'll install our leak down tester, hold our balancer, and we'll see where the air is leaking out at. All right, so we got our cylinder leak down installed. And we got a little bit of cylinder leak down, but not much. I guess overall that's a good thing. Was kind of expecting to be able to hear air coming out of the intake. Don't really hear air moving at all. It's a pretty minor leak, but probably enough to cause a compression misfire. So we'll continue tearing into this thing here. Alright, so as a comparison, I went ahead and checked number 6. And we're pretty close to the same, but not quite as high. But yeah, that's kind of would expect to see a little bit better on this one, but we'll keep going and see what happens. Welcome back to Patman Garage. We have yet another victim we're going to take a look at. So it has a misfire at low engine RPM and seems to drive reasonably well under normal power. So we're thinking it probably has tulip valves, but we'll dig into this a little bit more and see what's going on with it. Alright, so we are draining coolant. We got the intake removed, and we're going to take a look down inside of the respective intake ports. So at one point I did have a misfire on number 2. It is not currently setting, but whatever is happening with number 7 is also possible. We're going to have the same symptoms on number 2, so we'll take a look at that side as well. I got the head flipped over, and we got water standing in our cylinders here, and what we're looking for is any sort of water dripping through. Now I have oil underneath here from the head, but no moisture yet from water, so we'll let that sit up. Obviously we're going to lose some to evaporation, but I just want to make sure we're not losing a significant amount of water. Alright, so I built my little rack to hold the cylinder head and give me room to work underneath it to compress the valve springs. since I don't have, the manufacturer rack to hold the head. I made my own, and I built a little 2x4 that just sits on top of my press table here with intake valves. Alright, so we did have a little bit of moisture leaking on cylinder number 3 here, but it's not dripping out the bottom. So, let me grab a flashlight here. There we go. So you can see we actually got water pooling up in the exhaust. Well, by the time I got this thing torn down and the head shaken up, I got multiple exhaust ports that are leaking. So that one we can actually see it's specifically the valve on the front side of the head, not the back side. That also could be a little bit of water that was caught in the manifold, since we don't have anything up higher. And this guy, obviously, we can see is specifically the front valve. At this point, we're probably going to just go ahead and lap all the valves again on the exhaust side, just to be sure. So we'll get this head flipped over again and start tearing this side down. Alright, so I started lapping. I got my first, which is actually back to front, but I started lapping this one, and I have a weird spot in the valve that is not lapping correctly. Looks like the valve is actually burned a little bit. We actually lost some material. Hopefully that shows up there. You can see the discoloration there compared to what I had been working on. So I'm going to give it another shot here and see if we can get it to actually lay flat or not. If not, we might be looking at some more expensive of a repair, but you can see right here on the head we have a little spot there where, let's see if I can get you in there, where the discoloration kind of matches a little bit on the cylinder head. So I said we'll go a little bit and see if we can't get this thing to sit flush, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that we do. Alright, so we're going to do this for visualization best we can here. So I took a good exhaust valve from next door, covered it in green paint, and set it down in the hole. And we are not sealing very good on this side. As you can see, the valve seat is a little bit wider on that side as well. So it's definitely looks like we're looking at a cylinder head, unfortunately. As much as I didn't want it to be that, it looks like that's what we're looking at. Alright, so we confirmed we need one cylinder head, and now we're going to take a look and pull the other side off and find out if we need two cylinder heads. So I did have a misfire on cylinder 2 at one point. I don't expect that we really have a problem because I hadn't duplicated it since, but I think since we already have the motor torn down this far, I mean, we're basically VCT bolts, pop the cam caps, and unbolt the head away from verifying that this head's going to be okay or not. So we'll go ahead and get this side pulled off and do a water test on this one. Alright, we finally got cylinder head off the passenger side. There's a coolant temp sensor. It's kind of hard to get to, and that giant plastic clip is a beast to get off the back of the head. That thing is in such a weird spot. Other than that, it was pretty straightforward, but I'm going to blow out all my cylinders, all the coolant and oil that mixed in there. We'll get all that blown out, and we'll clean out our cylinder bolt holes as well, because you can end up cracking the block if you run a bolt back in there with anything in the bottom, because basically you're creating hydraulic pressure on the block with your threads at the bottom of the hole. So we'll clean all that out, make sure we're good to go on that. And I already got water in the cylinder head. We're doing a water test. I'll take you a second and go look at that. Alright, so I water tested this guy. So far nothing major, and then we started losing a little bit on this guy here, and it's gonna be real hard to see. Let's see if I can flip you around here. So we're dripping out of the intake ports. Um, so we definitely have at least a little bit of a leak here. We might be able to do that with valve lapping. This is going to be cylinder number 4. So this one never had a misfire. We were most concerned about cylinder number 2. So far it seems to be sealing okay. So we'll keep an eye on this guy and see what happens with it. Overall, we know we have a problem here. Depending on how we buy heads, we may just stop what we're doing and put 2 heads on it. We'll see. So after sitting for about 10 minutes, we've completely drained off the cylinder number 4. We had a couple little drips on cylinder number 2, but again, nothing crazy there. So probably is going to be worth pulling the exhaust manifold, pulling both sets of valves on this guy, seeing what we're looking up against as far as sealing issues and valve seats and how the valves are looking, and then we'll go from there. Alright, well, I got the passenger side torn down. I have cylinder 4 and cylinder 2 here. I pulled intake valves, and believe it or not, intake valves are tuliped. Welcome back out. So after quite a delay of waiting over 3 weeks to get reman cylinder heads actually shipped to me, so they took about 2 weeks to get processed, and then they got shipped out wrong. And I don't know that I necessarily have reason to believe they normally do business like this, but I also don't really have any other baseline. So I ended up canceling my order, and I bought some local Mustang heads from Pickle Performance down the street. So I appreciate Mr. Pickle for letting me drop by and grab some cylinder heads from you. So they actually came off of a Mustang, and they're in much better shape than what we had. We're going to do a quick check on them and make sure that they are in good working order before we get them installed. I do also have brand new intake valves that are going to be the updated part number. That way we don't have to worry about tuliping valves in the future. So we'll get these heads inspected before we get them broken down, and then we'll jump into this. Here we go. All right, so on top of my cylinder head here, I have my snap-on machined edge, straight edge. So this is about a $100 or $200 tool. This machined edge is perfectly straight and flat. So we're going to check the deck and make sure that these heads are not warped before we go and rebuild them. So the general tolerance is about 4/1000ths of an inch is too much. I just so happen to have a feeler gauge that is 030. There you go. Or, I'm sorry, 003, excuse me. So we'll do some feeler gauge and make sure we can't install. So we're good on that. We're good on that one. And we won't have any high spots on the end. And then we're going to do the same thing across this plane, across the back plane, and then one more diagonal. And then we'll assure that these heads are actually level, they aren't warped, and then we'll get into rebuilding them from here. Well, I was going to do a flood test, make sure these current valves are seating okay, but I don't have any spark plugs in here, so the water would have just run right out. So we'll have to end up putting some spark plugs in this thing, so we got to flip the head, put some spark plugs in it, flip it again, and then we'll do our leak test on this existing setup. All right, baseline, we got water in it. We've been holding for about 5 or so minutes. Everything looks great. We're nice and dry. Haven't had any leak down. We'll let it sit for a few more minutes, but overall, I think I'm pretty happy with it. There's a weird little air bubble that just jumped over here. But yeah, we're going to let this thing sit up for a little bit, and I'll go do some other stuff in the garage, and we'll come back. Sorry for the abrupt change in the video here, but we ended up getting this truck back together when it was pouring down rain, and I was really trying to get the heads back on and get everything timed and torqued, and just didn't have enough time to shoot video at the same time, or enough patience maybe. So I will overlay here, I will overlay the timing instructions for anybody trying to do this at home, as well as the torque procedures for the cam caps and head bolts and kind of all the major essential torquing instructions and timing instructions. And yeah, so to end the video, I think I was going to do a little bit different video here, and I was going to show you the special tools that I used outside of normal hand tools that I use on this job, just so we can have a little bit more time together. So we'll jump back into the garage and we'll take a look at the tools we used. All right, so here's the tools we used. So this is going to be the harmonic balancer puller set, which is going to be a tool that's designed to remove the balancer once you take the bolt out of it. This is the installer, basically the backwards of the remover. Both of those are Amazon purchases. This is the valve spring compressor tool. I actually realized that I never actually showed you that. Take a peek at that real quick. I wish it had a nice blow molded case, because this cardboard will not hold up forever. But we always could possibly find something at third-party aftermarket. But we'll take a look at this guy here. So this side's going to go on the bottom of the head. It's adjustable height, and this side's going to go on the top of the valve retainer, and then you swing the handle downward. That's going to depress our valve spring so we take the keepers out of it. This is the cam holding tool, also an Amazon purchase, no name on the box. These are just the blocks of metal that hold the camshafts in place while we're doing the secondary chain, or the chain that goes cam to cam. That's going to hold our cams in place. Technically don't have to have that, but it sure makes life a lot easier. And if you do more than one of these jobs, you know that whatever this $40 tool or whatever it costs, it definitely is going to pay for itself. And then I've got 1/2 inch torque wrench, 3/8 torque wrench, 1/4 inch torque wrench, and then this is my cooling system pressure tester and cooling system refiller. I've had that one on the channel a bunch. This is pressure tester with several different adapters. So just kind of wanted to go through exactly what all I used of additional on top of, you know, normal hand sockets, ratchets, extensions, that kind of thing. So if you don't have money for all 3 torque wrenches, I would recommend doing a 1/4 and a 3/8. The 1/2 inch, you can get away with most torque specs that are going to be for heads and stuff like that are going to be like somewhere in the 30 to 50 foot range, which is well within the 3/8 range. And then they have rotations on top of that. I've showed it before in other videos, but you can actually like mark the bolt head. So if we picture a bolt head here and we make a mark, you know, here, then once we turn it 90 degrees and then our mark moves over here, then we know we've rotated 90 degrees. We can do another 90 degrees, and you can get away without having the nice torque wrench if you really wanted to. And in case anybody wants to know, the truck does run. It does run really well. I've put about 150 miles on the truck so far and should be ready to go home. So we're good on all that. And I had spent some extra time driving the truck because I was working through a couple other issues on this truck. So I'll have a couple more follow-up videos on this truck in the coming weeks about some other smaller issues we resolved afterwards, after we got the engine back together and running. Anyways, I appreciate y'all checking out another video of mine, and I will catch you in the next one.